thanks for coming back. Tell me a little bit why you're here in Lenawee County today.
I'm just here talking to and meeting with residents, literally knocking on doors. One of the things that we like to do in this bus tour across the state is to be present in communities and just directly face to face with voters to talk with them about how far we've come, where we need to go in the future, and also hear about their priorities and their concerns, answer direct questions, and just be available to be sized up directly and accountable to the people of our state, small towns and big towns alike.
We probably talked, well actually we didn't, because last time you were not running for governor, but give me, I guess, the top points of your campaign. Why should people vote for you? Why should the residents of Lenawee County vote for you?
Michigan has been on an incredible comeback over the last 8 years. It used to be we're at the bottom of every list you'd want to be at the top of, and we're at the top of every list you'd rather be at the bottom of. We're up 555,000 new jobs. We had a 17-year low in unemployment. We're a top 10 income growth state since 2010. We now lead the Midwest in net inbound migration of college graduates, whereas we used to be last. Now 3 years in a row, we're first. And we've balanced budgets and reduced the debt, and we're #1 in manufacturing job growth, #6 in overall job growth in all of America. There's so many good things that are happening here in our state. I was a part of that leadership team, an integral part of that leadership team that brought our state back. But our problems and what we need for the future are different than in the past. Before, the biggest problem was not enough jobs. Now it's not enough people for all the jobs that have been created. That's why I've made my priorities of education, people development, investments in people, top priorities. The pre-K through 12 system. If you want to have a good outcome, you have to have a good beginning. And then it's bringing back skilled trades and lifelong learning with the Marshall Plan for Talent. You know, it's not just one track for success, that there are all different types of things a person could do with their life to be successful and independent and reach their potential. University is a good way to do that, but it's not the only way to do that. And then also social service reform, helping people, but helping them get back on their feet. Fixing the roads and lowering auto insurance costs are the round out the priorities that I have in moving forward in this campaign.
Why would you say, you know, of course your opponents have some of the same goals in mind, obviously. Why would you say you would be a better choice than Attorney General Bill Schuette or Gretchen Whitmer?
First of all, I'm the only candidate in this race on either side of the ticket that has been a part of the team that made it happen to this point. When it comes to our state and the progress we've made since 2010, we are on an amazing comeback. In many cases, whether it was ironically Bill Schuette of the same party or Gretchen Whitmer of the opposite party, to make these things happen, we had to beat them. We had to overcome their opposition for real reform in Michigan, whether it was bringing Detroit back and guiding it through bankruptcy or major tax reform or regulatory reform. My opponents were on the wrong sides of these issues, and the results speak for themselves. Our state has made an incredible comeback. So I've got the record, #1. #2, I have a real plan for the future. They have talking points, bullet points, they have goals, but they don't have plans, the how to get it done. I've demonstrated I can get hard things done in the past by carrying so many of the central issues of this administration to this point. Moving forward with my own administration, I have the detailed plans laid out in my book. You'll find anybody can get a free digital download at futureofmichigan.com. I go chapter by chapter by chapter, not just what I want to do, not just the goals, but how I will get them done.
Obviously, recent polls have indicated they're trailing Mr. Attorney General Schuette. Can you maybe analyze why you think that is and how you're going to overcome it in the next week, or whether it's wrong?
I don't think that pollsters have any idea how to poll anymore. I mean, I can't remember the last election in Michigan where they got it right. I mean, it just seems like election day is a big surprise to everybody, and it's because the electorate doesn't just fit into the types of categories that pollsters generally like to put them into. It's a very complicated political world out there right now. That's why you can see polls that come out that show a big margin to a very tight margin within days of each other, is because the assumptions that go into these polls, they're really not worth the paper that they're written on. But one thing that I do know for sure is that there's a tremendous amount of momentum that is happening all across the state. and it's showing up in the form of the endorsements. Like the Detroit News and Detroit Free Press in the same week both endorsed me. They hardly ever agree on things, but they agree on I'm the best choice in the Republican primary. The Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce and the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce both endorsed me. The Home Builders Association as well. As these things have mounted up over the last 5 or 6 weeks, I think it's a response to the type of momentum that people can feel on the ground. That there's energy and excitement and momentum behind this campaign, and I'm going to win.
It's been quite a campaign, I would say, as far as attack ads are concerned. If you just would humor me a bit, I'm just going to go over the 3 big attacks that were leveled at you by Attorney General Bill Schuette, and if you could just answer why they're wrong.
Sure.
So you voted to support tax increases while Governor Granholm was in office.
Well, what he's saying in that case is that my work to get the small business credit into the Michigan business tax, he's characterizing as a tax increase, when literally I saved tens of thousands of businesses from being hit by the Michigan business tax. I wish I could have saved everybody from it. I was in the minority at the time, a freshman Republican legislator when the Democrats were in control. The Small Business Association of Michigan made me their legislator of the year because of my work there, and yet he characterizes it like he does in that ad. It's just a lie, but well, the guy is a liar, so I mean that's the approach he's taken throughout this whole campaign.
Next one is your decision not to back President Donald Trump. Obviously, it's up to you which way you want to go, but tell me a little bit why you decided not to, or do you back him or not?
Well, I do support the president. His success is our success as America, and I think that we do need to rally. I mean, these are very difficult times in the world, and to rally behind the president, I think, is very important. When it came to the election before, every Republican took a different pathway to how they voted on Election Day. I did vote for the president. I said so before the election. And there are some people that got to that point earlier, and some people got to that point later. But clearly, everybody got there, or enough people got there at the time when it mattered the most. So I think the characterization that he's put in the ads is misleading at best.
Last one: expansion of Affordable Care Act in Michigan.
Yeah, basically what they're saying with that ad is that in Michigan we did Healthy Michigan. We did a Healthy Michigan program where working individuals, the working people that don't have access to health care could get access to Medicaid. Mm-hmm. Michigan needed a waiver to do it our way because we put accountability into it. When I look at going forward in the future, the most important thing we can do to lower the rolls, to not have so many people on Medicaid, is prepare those people to go out and take some of the 100 and some thousand jobs that are open right now. People can argue all day long about what percentage for Medicaid and when you should be in and when you should be out. That's a great debate for people to have. The most important thing that we can do is prepare people to go out there and work, solve whatever problems led them to needing so much help in the first place, get them back on their feet and independent so they don't have to be on Medicaid anymore. That's what my social service plan does, and obviously the ad totally misses the mark.
Okay, so obviously one of the biggest problems in this area is the opioid problem. Explain to me how you plan to handle it differently than what's being handled now, or if you want to continue the policies going now.
In 2015, I led the Prescription Drug and Opioid Abuse Task Force, and it put together a set of literally dozens of recommendations that are in process of implementation. The most important part is a new Michigan automated prescription system where doctors can see the prescription history of the person that they're dealing with. This can shut down doctor shopping and pill diversion, which is a huge part of the problem today. That's brand new and in place in recent history. But what we saw last year for the first time in a very long time, a reduction in opioid prescriptions, which is a very good thing. The healthcare industry is now responding to these policy changes, and moving forward, I have confidence that communities are getting on board, the healthcare system is getting on board, parents are getting on board in order to deal with it. It's not going to be an overnight solution, but we have to do it all: prevention, healthcare, and treatment. All three of these recommendations. It's a big lift, but we have to get it done because we have too many funerals around opioid abuse and opioid overdoses.
Let's talk about infrastructure. Can you tell me what are your plans to improve the state's infrastructure? And we can include water in that, roads, communications.
The first thing is fully phasing in the plan that is phasing in now. So people are probably noticing a lot more road construction this year. It's a record amount in Michigan. That's because a few years ago a new $1.2 billion road funding package was passed. I broke the tie on that. Wouldn't have passed without that tie-breaking vote. And that is, when we look out there in our roads, you see our roads really desperately need improvement. But it's not just more money, it's higher quality as well. And so now that we actually have more money to build new roads, those roads are being built at higher standards than the ones that they're replacing. It's a little more upfront, but then they last longer, so it's worth it. And then technology in the roads, and engineering them differently to make the dollars go further. M23 between Brighton and Ann Arbor is a good example of that. It was projected to be about a $400 million project, but through VDI technology in the roads and different types of engineering, we got it down to a $95 million project. And then integrated asset management is the final part of it. It's setting the expectation that everybody who shares your right-of-way has to coordinate their repair, maintenance, and replacement work, so that you don't have a road that gets fixed, and then next year they tear out that road to put in a new sewer line, and then next year they tear out over here for a culvert, and maybe for a sidewalk, or for laying fiber cable after that. Everybody who shares a right of way should be a part of a rolling 5-year plan, so that when the road gets torn up, it just gets torn up once, and the cost of doing the work is shared between all those entities. That could result in substantial savings. The final thing I'll say is we paid off about half of the debt on the roads. The previous administration took out billions of dollars in debt, spent all the money, and left us with the loan payments. So we've been faithfully paying down those loans. Over $1 billion has been paid off already. Once they're paid off, it'll be another $225 million about each year into our roads, instead of paying for the roads of yesterday through those loans.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, the economy is better than it was, maybe before you guys started. A lot of things are looking positive for Michigan, but there is a sense that maybe your connection with the Snyder administration maybe is hurting your campaign. Do you think it's helping or hurting?
Well, the work that I have done over the last 8 years is, I think, is a huge boost to both the campaign and also the message behind it, which is that our state has made an extraordinary comeback by really any measure. You talk about income, population growth, the comeback of cities, and unemployment and job growth, and all these different areas, the big macroeconomic statistics. Michigan is clearly and undeniably way better off than before. And why would we want to change that? Why would we want to go in a different direction than 555,000 new jobs and a 17-year low in unemployment? I mean, I think that's the basis of or the starting point of the argument in the campaign. But then you put on top of that real plans and relevant experience in bringing it to the next level. And I think that sets me apart. And that experience in this administration, I think, is going to go a long way to gaining more support.
Mm-hmm. Not only have, when we talk about jobs, we also have to talk about the salaries that people are getting. Personally, when you look around, especially in Lenawee County, there are many, many people who have to work 2-3 jobs to make ends meet. How would you, besides just adding jobs, how would you try to raise the general income of the residents of Michigan?
If you were to look at my my top priorities in this campaign, you'll find that it's really focused on investments in people. So income is tied to skill level, and the best way we can help people to raise their income is to raise their skill level, give them access to the types of skills that are in demand and result in higher incomes. And certificate-based education programs, in addition to college tracks, are really important, and lifelong learning systems as well. We have to abandon this notion that you go through education, you're done with education, and then you go on to your career, and that's it. The world changes so quickly these days, and you just have to be committed to retraining and gaining new skills right along the way. Sometimes that happens right inside a workplace. Sometimes you need to partner with an educational institution. But the Marshall Plan for Talent, which is being launched this year, is going to totally transform the way that we help people get connected to the skills that result in more independence and higher income.
Are you concerned that some of the policies that are being pushed by President Donald Trump may negatively affect Michigan's economy because of things like tariffs with Canada and on certain goods? Have you thought about that at all?
Absolutely. This is an area where I hope that this is a negotiating position as opposed to a permanent policy position. Michigan companies, Michigan workers, they don't need protection. They just need fair access and a level playing field. If they have fair access and a level playing field, even when they don't have a level playing field, they're so efficient and so innovative that oftentimes they can still succeed. But they deserve to have a fair playing field. So the idea of renegotiating and spending a time kind of resetting the table, I think that's a reasonable thing for our federal government to be doing. But the idea of permanent protectionist type policies, I think that to the extent that limits off the sale of Michigan-made products to the rest of the world, that could have a negative impact. And so I'm cautiously optimistic that we have we're in a transition period here, that these trade agreements will be negotiated and they will be settled, and that we won't be left with a situation where Michigan companies have less access to selling their Michigan-made products all over the world.
So wrapping up, you've been campaigning, I believe, since the beginning of the year right now, officially? Or?
Yeah, I got in to the race. I filed in the last couple of days of November.
Right. Oh yes, right, November. So since you started campaigning, has there been anything that you've that you've seen or heard from people that have changed your mind, changed your policies, or has been pretty much straight as you started?
Well, I've been all over the state doing town hall meetings and even debates with other candidates and just talking to people everywhere. And that's really how I established the priorities, the issues that I'm running on. They came right out of those discussions with the citizens. And so the education system, I mean, I've got a great jobs record, right? Michigan job growth is 6th highest in the nation. So we've really turned things around there. What I hear talk about in our communities today, employers and parents and kids just looking to get into the workforce, it's not that they're worried there won't be jobs. They're worried about, how do I get the skills that I need to go out there and get those jobs? How do I make sure my kids have access to what they need to get those jobs? So the Marshall Plan for Talent in the K-12 system are top priorities because of that. I've heard a lot about, and I not just heard a lot about it. I mean, I live it in my own personal life with friends and family that have special challenges, to where even when the economy is going really well, that they don't get to be a part of it. So I've got a heart for social service reform in helping people to become more independent, so they can go out there and just live their own self-determined life. I mean, that's just such an important aspect. And then auto insurance, lowering the cost of auto insurance with a whole different approach toward the reform that I put on the table, and then fixing the roads. These are the issues that I heard from citizens about that were their top priorities, and because of that, they're my top priorities.
So I guess before we wrap up, I forgot to ask you about mental health. We are losing our only, or I think we may have lost our only inpatient mental health facility. We have 0 beds here in mental health in Lenawee County. I know you've been big into mental health. Can you tell me about your plan to maybe avert such situations like we have here, where a lot of communities are left without any kind of facilities?
Right now we have a system one system for healthcare, and then a very segregated system for healthcare from the neck up. And that's the approach that I'm taking in trying to facilitate the pilots of integrating these two systems. I think that's the most important thing that we can do. there's people always talk about funding at this level or funding at that level, and of course those are important debates, and providing services does take some level of funding. But what I'm concerned about is that a separate system will never really be equal. We have, we would never accept that in an education situation, right? I mean, that's the Supreme Court. Some of the most famous Supreme Court case law is separate is not equal. Yet for our healthcare system, the mental health system is so separate from the rest of the healthcare system. And so I think that the integration of total body health care is the most important thing. So moving forward in the pilots is not easy, right? These systems have grown up totally separate from each other. It's not easy to integrate them in together, but I think that that's necessary for us to get the type of results that we need.
So you want to conclude with anything that, any message to the voters of Michigan or Lenawee County specifically?
Well, first of all, what an amazing community. This is the type of place that really is full of people that know how to take care of themselves, people that know how to help a neighbor out, and just a good, solid, strong community. As we move forward going into the future, what I offer in this election is real experience bringing our state back, an actual plan for the future, not just bullet points, not just talking points, but a real plan for how we move our state forward, build on this foundation, and bring it to the next level. And then, but then also it's authenticity. With me, what you see is what you get. I'm not the type of person that grandstands or tries to stand out in front and tries to get attention for myself. I'm doing this because I love Michigan. I've got kids that are growing up. I want them to have opportunity like everybody else has opportunity. And doing that just doesn't happen by accident. You have to have strong, consistent leadership. And why would we want to risk going in a totally different direction than the direction that brought our state back?
Great, thank you very much, and thanks for coming to Lenawee County.
Thank you.